A basement of La Penta, it's WICR.
Hello, Iona College fans listening around the country. Welcome back to the Sports Vault. I'm your host with the most, Jersey Joe, coming with my partner, as always, Big Shot Rob. Rob, it's nice to be back. You know, we got a lot of games to talk about, so I don't want to waste any time. We're going to start off with, like we did last week, go over every NFL game, give you our thoughts, our impressions. Rob, I'm sure, has got a lot of frustration to get out with the way his Jets looked the other day. But let's start off. We're going to start off with the Seahawks and the Chargers. Definitely one of the bigger surprises of the day. I think a lot of people went with the Seahawks automatically after the way they looked in Week 1. But you've got to give Mike McCoy and the Chargers a lot of credit. I mean, this team at home has played extremely well the last two seasons. At home against no matter who it's been, they've been in these games. Even in Week 1 against Arizona, the Chargers looked very good. I mean, they lost that game very close. I think the Chargers, I love what I've seen out of them so far this year. Phillip Rivers was unbelievable last night. I think he completed something in the range of 22 of 28, over 200 yards, all 3 touchdowns to Antonio Gates. Really like what I'm seeing out of San Diego, and I thought they were going to start 0-2. Two really tough games, but 1-1 with the schedule they're facing is a very good start to the season.
Yeah, awesome win last night, Joe. Great win over the defending champs. Rivers was on point, and we're seeing from what you said last year, Joe, a strong offensive line for Rivers. Look what he could do with a line, and just amazing job, 284 yards and 3 touchdowns, and what a great game against the defending champs.
And you know, that's one of the signs I really look at the Chargers to really see how much better Mike McCoy's improved this team. When you look at them in 2012, Phillip Rivers was just running for his life. Last night, you face a very, very dangerous Seahawks pass rush, and the Chargers line did a really nice job. Even when it broke down, Phillip Rivers, you could tell he's just so much more comfortable moving in the pocket, stepping up in his throws. So really good signs for the Chargers. Now let's get my other team out of the way already, the Detroit Lions and the Carolina Panthers. As soon as this game hit 0 and the game was over, I just thought, same old Detroit Lions. I mean, Week 1, I think we said it, the Giants made them look a lot better than they were. You just saw on the offensive end, they couldn't get anything going. On defensively, Carolina really did well with Cam Newton. I mean, Cam looked very good in this game, but you've got to think that for a guy who didn't play Week 1's got a little rust, a little bit dinged up, I think it was not a good sign for the Detroit Lions defense. And to be honest, I just think this is the same old Detroit Lions team, same old story. I don't think this team's going to improve that much better. Carolina, I will say, I think we might have undervalued a little bit. I think Carolina is going to be better than we thought. I thought the cornerback situation in Carolina was going to be a big problem for them this year, but the corners have really stepped up. We know how good they are up front. Luke Kuechly is the best middle linebacker in the NFL right now, and I think Carolina, I definitely undervalued a little bit at the beginning of the season.
This game, Joe, was very disappointing by the Detroit Lions. Matthew Stafford with his inconsistent play, and I'm sorry, they are not going far anytime soon. They are too inconsistent. With the wide receiving corp that they have this year with Golden Tate and Calvin Johnson, should be destroying teams, should be averaging about 30 points a game, and just an embarrassing loss to the Panthers. Great job, though, by Cam Newton coming back from his rib injury, 281 yards and 1 touchdown, and I think the Panthers are going to win the division again this year.
Yeah, and your man Cam Newton for fantasy looking really good for you there. Let's go on to the next team, the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. I think a lot of people were riding high on the Dolphins this week after their win against the Patriots last week. On our pick show, I picked the Bills to win this game. To be honest, I mean, I still can't understand what all the fuss was about E.J. Manuel, how the Bills were disappointed with how he's been looking. E.J. Manuel's looked pretty good in the first 2 games. I mean, you see him and Sammy Watkins have got the connection going already. Both of them have got great chemistry. The running game has been good. C.J. Spiller looks like he's back in form. Everything's looking good for Buffalo. Miami, it's the same thing we always see. Ryan Tannehill shows us those spurts where he looks like he's got the potential, and then he shows that game again like yesterday where he just inept on offense for most of the game. I thought Buffalo would win this game. Buffalo at home has played better, and I really like what Buffalo is doing. As long as E.J. Manuel continues to progress like he is, they've got a pretty good defense. This Bills team's definitely, I'm going to keep my eye on them.
Yeah, you most definitely do, Joe. You have to look at this team good. Because E.J. Manuel, everybody's been undervaluing this guy even last year when he got drafted. And you know what? This guy is showing the spurts that he showed at the start of last year before he got injured. And I have a lot of high hopes for the Bills. I think they could cause a big divisional race versus the Jets and the Patriots this year.
Oh, we'll get to the Jets, but let's hold off on them for now. Let's go on to one of the bigger blowouts of the day, the Washington Redskins and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, the headline of that game was RG3 getting hurt. His injury does not look good right now, but you had Kirk Cousins who came in, really just took the offense down the field every time. They won that game 41-10. Now, I actually picked the Jaguars to win this game. You're probably thinking, what were you thinking? Are you nuts? Maybe I was when I was picking this game. I just looked at RG3 and the way he looked in week 1. I did not like what I saw. And Jacksonville, I was really hoping Blake Bortles. I want to see what Blake Bortles is going to do, but you saw in that game against Washington the other day, they can't protect him. That offensive line was awful yesterday. I mean, I think Henne got sacked at least 8 times in that game. For a young quarterback like Bortles, it's a good decision. If you don't think you can protect your young quarterback, do not throw him in there. So I think Gus Bradley made a good decision there. I do still want to see Bortles at some point this year, but Jacksonville, things are not looking good for. Rob, talk about the whole RG3 situation in Washington. If things even up the way they are, RG3 maybe misses a extended amount of time. He might be out for the year again. Kirk Cousins, just give us your whole impressions of the whole situation.
Right now, Joe, I would say with RG3's injury with a dislocated ankle, I say his job's in jeopardy, even coming back next year, if he comes back next year. I'm sorry, I think this injury might have just knocked him out completely for his NFL career. Because the guy has struggled, Joe. Since that ACL injury, recovering, coming back, he struggled. And this injury is really going to kill this Redskins team. They invested so much to get him. And you know what? It's such a killer. And you have to have high expectations now for Kirk Cousins to lead this team.
And he's looked very good. I mean, he's met those expectations so far, so we will definitely keep that one monitored. Now let's go on to the next game, the Dallas Cowboys and the Tennessee Titans. Now the Cowboys and the Titans is one of those ones where I think a lot of people went with Tennessee in this game based on the big win against Kansas City last week, but I didn't like that at all. I went with Dallas here. I just don't trust Jake Locker as my quarterback. It wasn't a great game. I mean, there wasn't a ton of star-studded games on this Sunday lineup, but there's not a lot to talk about here. I mean, the Cowboys, they got a win against a team that's not that great. The Cowboys still have a lot of things to clean up, and that's all I can say on that one.
Yeah, this game, Joe, Tennessee, Jake Locker, too inconsistent. You've been talking about this year, how you don't trust him whatsoever, and you know what? I'm seeing the faults already with him.
Now let's go to the Cardinals and the Giants. This was one of the big ones, obviously, from the weekend. Now, as soon as I heard Carson Palmer wasn't playing, I'm going to be honest, I was very tempted to switch my pick over to the Giants side, but I had to stay with the Cardinals, and rightfully so. I mean, you see, I don't think Eli Manning played terribly the other day. I mean, Eli had that one bad interception in early, but overall, I didn't think he was bad last night. It was just a collectively bad effort on the Giants side. Special teams on the defensive end with penalties. I mean, there was just a lot of sloppy mistakes in that game. Arizona, I mean, some of those penalties that they got field goals on were just unacceptable. And right now, look, it's going to be a long season for the Giants. They play Houston next week at home, and right now I'm leaning towards Houston in that game because I think Eli, even if he plays better than he did this week, just everything else that I see right now, there's just so many problems the Giants have. I just don't like what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, Joe, I'm looking at another 0 for 6 start this year.
0 for 6 start, all right.
Yeah, I don't get it. Late in the game with that punt return by Ginn, how do you miss that tackle? I don't understand that whatsoever.
That missed tackle was ridiculous.
And that opened right up for the Cardinals to take away and win this game. You have the fumble late by the Giants late in the game. Manning played a pretty decent game. He got the ball to Cruz. Don't understand how they didn't beat this Cardinal team with Stanton starting at quarterback for Arizona. Very disgraceful team right now, the Giants. I'm not happy whatsoever with them. And this team, you should have a lot of high hopes. Eli Manning has won 2 Super Bowls, and you just look at it now. What is going on right now? And is Eli's job in jeopardy anytime soon?
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, last season seems like we were at the same point, and we were talking about what should the Giants do. Now, I could never bench Eli. I know some people think you can't look at the past and what he's done, but I can't sit down a guy who's made the plays he has in the biggest spots, but I'll be honest, I am running out of excuses for Eli now. He did play better, like I said already, but we'll definitely have to see. If he doesn't really continue to progress with his play, then I'm going to have some questions there as well. Now let's go to the Patriots and the Vikings. Again, another one of those games, not a lot to talk about here, but New England definitely back in form. Matt Castle comes back down to the earth, and New England's defense makes a lot of plays. They get the win there pretty easily. Now, this is the one I want to talk about, the Saints and the Browns. Now, the Browns could be 2-0 at this point. They almost came back against the Steelers in Week 1, and they really gave the Saints a big, hard time. Now, last year, all the talk was about how much better the Saints' defense was. Rob Ryan did a fantastic job, but you see in the first 2 games, if you were listening to Mike and Mike this morning, you heard Greeny. He made a great joke. Saying that Matt Ryan threw for 6,000 yards against the Saints defense. And it's true. It seems like the Saints defense, it's just a shell of itself last year. They're having trouble stopping the run game. They're having trouble stopping the passing game. The Saints defense really does not look good. The offense is moving the ball, but, you got to think maybe this Browns team is better than we thought they were. And you got to think maybe the Saints team isn't as good as they thought they were. Out of those 2, Rob, which one are you buying?
I think the Browns team, we've overlooked them, Joe. I think Patine has built a great defense for this Cleveland Browns team. Brian Hoyer's coming back just like he did last year, played great. And we really had to start focusing on this team a lot, Cleveland, because I'm telling you right now, there's a team that's going to surprise everybody, and I think they can win 9 or 8 games this year.
Look, I don't think you're crazy. I love their defensive personnel. They have Carlos Dansby. They brought over from the Cardinals. Great addition. He's been very good. They have Joe Hayden, one of the best corners in the NFL. This is a good defensive group. And on the offensive end, Hoyer's played pretty well. He has. So I think all the talk was everybody was going to want Manziel at this point. You got to be happy with what Hoyer's doing right now. And based on what they do next week, I don't think that's impossible. Now let's go to the Falcons and the Bengals. The Falcons really coming back down to earth this year. Matt Ryan was unbelievable in Week 1, but that was a tough road game against a good Bengals team. The big concern here is with A.J. Green being taken out of the game. Even with that, with his toe injury, the Bengals still found a way, got a very easy win here. I thought the Falcons would definitely make this more of a game, so I'm really going to have to keep my eye on Atlanta to see what they look like next week, because now I'm a little bit worried again. Is this the same Atlanta team last year, or was Week 1 of the season the turning point for them for this season? So we'll keep our eye on that one. Now, Rob, this one I got to say, the Rams and the Buccaneers, this game was worse than death. Man, this was like watching paint dry. The Buccaneers have been the most boring team to watch in the first 2 weeks. They're killing me, Tampa Bay. They're killing me. McCown has been awful. Everybody at the beginning of the season, everybody was saying how much they loved bringing Lovie Smith. I'm a big Lovie Smith fan too, but man, this team, you look at the weapons McCown has to work with. You've got Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson on both ends of the football. Doug Martin obviously wasn't playing, but this is a Rams team with Austin Davis at quarterback. The Buccaneers they're not a slouch on the defensive end. They have good pieces. I can't for the life of me. This Buccaneers team, if the first 2 games mean anything, this is going to be a really rough year for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, it's looking terrible already, Joe. I don't know how far they're going to go this year. I don't know how you lose to a third-string quarterback whatsoever.
Austin Davis.
Never even heard of him.
Austin Davis. Embarrassing. You can't put it any better now. I'm going to skip over the Texans game for a minute. I will let you lead off with the Jets game. Good. Take the stage.
All right, we own this game for the first 25 minutes. We gotta get credit for that. We own the Packers.
I was shocked.
I couldn't believe some of the stuff Geno Smith was doing. Pass rushes were coming right at him, would shuffle the ball right out. But then I don't understand the collapse whatsoever. The second half, Jordy Nelson owned the Jets. I don't know how the defense collapsed whatsoever. You can't blame Geno for this loss whatsoever. Then you have Sheldon Richardson, who starts a whole fight versus the Packers. Late in the game, Mortingham with the timeout.
Oh, my God.
And Richardson says, I was the one who told the officials about the timeout, so thank you for blowing the game for us. And you look at, this is a game the Jets should have won, should be 2-0, And you know what? Geno Smith, I'm not blaming him for this loss whatsoever. It's the Jets' defense that failed that whole second half and let Green Bay back into this game. Embarrassing.
When Geno threw that pass to Curley, when they got it taken off the board for the timeout, I was like, that's a big boy throw. That was a big-time throw by Geno Smith there, and I like what I've seen out of him in the first 2 games, but you're right. I mean, the reason I picked the Packers to win this game initially was because I thought the Jets' secondary would not be able to match up with the Packers, and in the first half, it looked like I was definitely wrong, but the Packers just came back, really exploited that secondary. You had a lot of the off the field after the play, dumb stuff by the Jets, and Morningwig with that thing there, I mean, that's as much the officials' fault, and there was a lot of bad officiating on Sunday as anything else because the head coach is the only one who's allowed to call a timeout. The official should have turned around and noticed it wasn't Rex Ryan calling the timeout. That's as much on him as it is Morningwig there, so that's a really bad job officiating. Overall, though, officiating on Sunday was horrendous. They were throwing the Sunday night game last night was almost unbearable to watch. They were throwing a flag on every single play. It was just horrible. In the NFL, I mean, a lot of people have been complaining to me about these penalties, and I was kind of waving it off, but I mean, man, the more you watch, the more you see it, the amount that they're calling, they're not letting them play anymore, and it's really becoming frustrating to watch. You watch that game last night, that's the best case, so let's go get back on track, though, my little rant there on the Texans and the Raiders. This was one of the ones at the beginning of the week I had a hard time deciding who I thought was going to win here. I ended up going with Houston because their defenses look good. Fitzpatrick has made enough plays to keep them in the game. Arian Foster has looked very good. And a Raiders team that at the beginning of the season with all the offseason moves we thought would be better than this, they really are not looking like they're going to have a good year.
No, not whatsoever, Joe. And you look at the Raiders now, they drafted Derek Carr, they got Matt Schaub in the offseason. Are they going to look for another quarterback? Because that's the history of the Oakland Raiders. Keep getting quarterbacks.
Can't find one. You're not good until you have one. Let's go on to the Chiefs and the Broncos. Now, Kansas City, again, one of those teams, I was incredibly disappointed with them week 1, losing at home to Tennessee, just unforgivable, and they gave the Broncos a real run for their money last night. This was a close game up until the final minute, and the Kansas City had the ball moving down the field, had a chance to tie the game, but they couldn't get it done. I think you got to say for Denver, this is not as good a start as last year. I mean, last year was a historic start, but they're doing enough to win. And Denver, you just got to be happy. Sometimes you just win and you get that win. But last night, the game. Now, we got to talk about Colin Kaepernick because the 49ers had this game won. They were winning 17-7 going into halftime. Colin Kaepernick, man, he just gave this game away. 3 interceptions. I mean, he was awful in this game. I just can't figure out with Kaepernick because, for me, I'm not sold on the guy. I mean, we said last year, when the 49ers, remember, they got off to a really slow start last year, and part of the problem was during that stretch, the run game really got shut down. And when you see Colin Kaepernick's production comes from the run game. When you take the run game away, he's a lot easier to stop. So I'm a little concerned about him. The 49ers secondary in that game, for the first half, they look good, but that you definitely see that losing all the guys they did in the offseason, it's going to be a tough transition. The Bears, it was a big win because they really needed to bounce back after that loss to the Bills in week 1. The 49ers, though, a lot of question marks. Colin Kaepernick's got to step it up. He really does. Rob, are you on my bandwagon for Kaepernick, or are you in the favor circle of him?
No, I'm against Kaepernick, Joe. I'm with you on this one. I'm seeing his true faults. We discuss this all the time. Me and you discuss this all the time. Kaepernick cannot do anything but run the football. And we saw yesterday when he got shut down, how he had to go to his passing game, couldn't get anything done. And the Bears defense just swarmed all around him, shut him down that whole fourth quarter. Don't even know how the Bears came back in this game because the 49ers owned that whole game until the fourth quarter. And you know what? Just very disappointing loss by the 49ers. And as I've said in the past, Colin Kaepernick is not the QB that the 49ers need to win. He is not going to win them a Super Bowl, hands down.
Well, they gave him the money. He's their man, so we don't agree, but he is their man. Now, before we finish off our NFL segment, we've got a Monday night game. We've got the Colts and the Eagles, the Colts being the home team. I'm taking the Colts here. I don't like what I've seen out of the Eagles' defense. I think Andrew Luck will really exploit that secondary, and I can never pick against my man Andrew Luck. I'm going with the Colts.
Yeah, I'm picking the Colts too, Joe. I expect a bounce-back week. I don't see the Colts starting 0-2.
Beautiful. Well, that is going to wrap it up for our NFL segment. Stay tuned with us. When we come back, we're going to highlight everything from the college football weekend. Who are the best teams? Is the AP rankings correct? What did we see? So stay with us, and we will be right back.